In November 2020, he brought you the Bond that started it all. Then in late November of 2020, he gave you the one film of Lazy Lazenby. Quick after the Thanksgiving holiday of 2020, he delivered more Bond. Then December came, 2020. He got you warmed up and dapper with Dalton. And middle December 2020, we last saw him, piercing through the Bond's culture. And now he's back like you've never seen him before, with the Craig List. Oh shit! I'm back, baby! Time has finally arrived to get some D up in you. Talking about Daniel Craig, guys! So after all the guys we've seen go through and play the character of James Bond, and most everyone being satisfied with Pierce Brosnan doing it, we were all waiting to see the direction they were going to take the Bond character next. And man, they threw us a dart out of left field. And it was a good dart. We get the almighty Daniel Craig. Oh, he's sexy! Yeah, I said it! Look. When Daniel came on the scene, when we saw who was going to play Bond, we all thought it was different. I'm not going to lie. Even me, I was just kind of like, man, they're going a different direction with Bond. He was kind of blonde hair. Yeah, the Roger Moore character was sort of blonde hair, but it was more like a dark brown. This was straight up like a sandy blonde hair. But man, those piercing blue eyes. And he definitely had a cool look to him, but I was, admittedly so, kind of weirded out by it. Sort of like we all were when Ben Affleck became Batman. And you all know how I feel about him. But man, we got that trailer for Casino Royale after it had been a while since Die Another Day had come out, and we heard that they were just rebooting the character completely. In fact, going with sort of an origin story, which they achieved pretty well with Casino Royale. But I remember seeing that first trailer and just being blown away by it, thinking, all right, man, they're going a really cool route. And Daniel Craig did look cool as the character of Bond in the trailer, but I still wasn't sold yet. Man, after I saw Casino Royale, I was definitely saying that he's my favorite Bond, and it still holds up to me that way today. I still think he's the best Bond. He's my absolute favorite. God, he's so badass and cool.
Yes. Considerably.
He's no question my favorite. In fact, by the time I saw him in that movie for about the first 20 minutes, it was love at first sight. I was just enamored with the guy. I honestly had a man crush on him, still do. Yeah, I said it! But I just think he's the most believable by far, and the route that they took with Bond by rebooting the franchise like this and sort of going this really gritty route, they definitely said, let's go away from the gadgets, the unrealistic tone, the sort of comic booky vibe. Let's make this real. Let's make you believe that Bond could exist. Yeah, Quantum of Solace goes off the rails just a little bit with that. That one becomes too much of an action movie, but we'll talk about that in a second. But with Casino Royale, man, that movie just blew me away. Ironically enough, it was directed by the same guy who directed Goldeneye, Martin Campbell, who breathed new life into the character then. They said, hey, why don't we get him to try to breathe new life into this one with Casino Royale? And he succeeded. That movie is phenomenal. Not only does it paint this picture of this Bond character that you love, and it portrays this newer Bond that's sort of gritty and edgier, but you get to see his origin story kind of in a modern day setting. But they really are trying to just start over again. Obviously, they're paying homage to all the other films while nodding to certain things, giving you fan service, because it's a beloved franchise. It's been around for so long. Of course they want to do that. It's warm and cozy when they do that. I love it when they do that. And you know you do too. You just can't go overboard and do it too much. But man, everything from that opening parkour scene's badass. The way he immediately portrays the character, the way he's sharp-witted, his comebacks are just so badass and cool and witty. Yeah, Pierce Brosnan was witty and really sarcastic, but I swear, everything that comes out of Daniel Craig's mouth as the character of Bond is a straight-up panty melter.
I can't find the stationery. You come and help me look.
He's just so flippin' cool, I'm telling you. As a friend of mine who's a Marine said, a true badass.
Placement, welcome Mr. Beach. Or is that Bond? I'm a little confused.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
It's got that poker scene in it that is hands down the most intense poker scene you've ever seen. I didn't know that you could make a poker scene in a movie that intense and interesting, but man, they achieved the hell out of it. And then we get to see how buff he is coming out of the water. Great ass! And one thing that they kind of did that was sort of just expecting you to buy it is they took the M character played by Judi Dench. They took her from the Pierce Brosnan era and just shoved her into here. Which is fine, but it does sort of contradict this whole idea of it being an origin story, which it still is, but it's like, wait a minute, but it's still got the same M from the last one? But everybody else in this is new. Every character in this is new. In fact, you don't even see Q until the movie Skyfall. But Moneypenny is a new Moneypenny in this franchise, and she's gorgeous, by the way. And that's something I gotta comment on real fast. All the Bond girls in the Daniel Craig franchise thus far, don't get me wrong, obviously they're drop-dead gorgeous women, but I'm talking about on a Bond girl scale. They just aren't all that impressive to me, and I'm not even talking about looks, just talking about badassery. If they're cool, if they're smart, if they're strong, if they're evil. The ones in the prior films, there was always something a little extra special about the Bond girls. In the Daniel Craig franchise, that might be one of my only little nitpicks, as the Bond girls just aren't that interesting. I don't even care for Vesper a whole lot. We'll talk about her. Vesper in this movie, they kind of pull from Her Majesty's Secret Service just a little bit in the sense that they make Bond fall in love and he really gets attached to this girl. Spoiler alert. But she dies. And it's really good for Casino Royale because it adds to the gravity of who Bond is. It adds to the edginess and the grittiness. It's sort of like how hardcore and cold he is because he lost somebody that he really loved. I like that they did that with this movie. I can't forget about that awesome scene that just shows how badass Daniel Craig is, where he's sitting in the chair and they're swinging that rope underneath it. The thing that stands out the most about the Daniel Craig era is the fact that they are all connected. Every film is one huge narrative. They've never done that before in Bond films. They may have slightly connected something from one movie to the next, but for the most part, there's never any interacting plot lines or storylines or over-encompassing story arc. And the Daniel Craig franchise, they do that. And I'm really hoping they continue that on with No Time to Die, at least finish it off. Because to me, that makes these movies stand out and makes them what they are. It makes them all that much better. And it's not just a sort of, let's see how we can tie it in. The films are actually written to tie in. It's done really well. Yeah, Quantum of Solace is the only one out of the Daniel Craig franchise thus far that is sort of a misfire in my opinion. There's a lot of great stuff to it. Obviously Daniel Craig's awesome in it. The action scenes are really great, the opening scene's really cool, but it's too much of an action movie. They forget to have some of those slow down moments that you need in the Bond film. I'm not saying make the movie slow, but it's so action paced and so action involved sometimes, and the action scenes are badass, but it doesn't really have a whole lot of depth and gravity to the film. It gets there towards the end a little bit. I still enjoy watching it, but it's my least favorite of the Daniel Craig era. They do really do a lot of stuff to keep it tied into the first one, like picking it up 10 minutes after Casino Royale ends, which I thought that was pretty cool. They kind of do the same thing from Skyfall to Spectre. It does have a cool little nod to Goldfinger in it too, where like in Goldfinger there was that girl he found that was dead on the bed and she was all covered in gold. This one the same thing happens, but it's a girl all covered in oil. Any Bond fan would notice immediately that that's an homage. Oh yeah, and it has a young David Harbour pre-Stranger Things. But if anything makes that movie actually hold up, it is the action, because the action scenes are pretty dope. They just don't mean as much because the plot's just not there, or it's just not interesting. But then Skyfall came along, directed by Sam Mendes, and that one, whew, it's in my top 5 Bond films for sure. That is an amazing movie. Just a piece of art all the way through. Sam Mendes, American Beauty, Jarhead, he's done a lot of great things. He's obviously a good filmmaker, and so when he tapped in to do this Bond movie, we were like, Sam Mendes doing an action movie? But man, were we all blown away. It was awesome. It's sort of what I call the quintessential Bond film. If somebody's never seen a Bond movie in their entire life, I'd be like, you know what, you should watch Skyfall. It does all this really personal stuff with Bond, sort of the most personal in the Daniel Craig area, but that's what I like about his era. It's all personal. Every one of his films are based on stuff that's real personal to him, that means something to him. It's not just him trying to complete a job. And that makes those movies way better to me. But in Skyfall, the fact that it touches on his family, the death of his parents, spoiler alert, the death of M. Judi Dench gets killed as M in this, and Ralph Fiennes takes over, but the way that they make that all happen in the movie is just really like almost Oscar-worthy. Really good, very compelling storytelling. I highly recommend Skyfall to watch. And the fact that Javier Bardem is the villain in it, and it's sort of a little nod to Jaws, in my opinion. You know, Jaws from like Moonraker and Spy Who Loved Me. Just the way that he turns around at that moment at the end of the movie and he takes the teeth out, and he's got those jacked up teeth. In my opinion, I just feel like it's a nod to Jaws. Spectre, directed by Sam Mendes again, another director coming back for a second movie. Really good job. I think that Martin Campbell should have directed Quantum of Solace right after Casino Royale. I think that would have made it a better movie. It would have tightened up the story a little bit more. But they're continuing the story on with Skyfall and all the way through Spectre. It's got a really great opening scene, if you ask me, with the helicopter. I love that. And man, the way he is, he's just, God, Daniel Craig is just so cool. Everything he does, everything that comes out of his mouth, he's just such a badass. I know I've said that already, but I just can't stress it enough how much I love him as Bond. Man crush! Ralph Fiennes actually is continuing his role as M in this one, which he does a really good job as that character. I think it was a great fit. Where the Skyfall storyline was very interesting, this one's also very interesting too because it's tying personally back into... There's this side plot going on where they're talking about how agents in the field aren't needed anymore because we have so much surveillance and technology that we could just use that. Of course, Bond proves him wrong. And even though M was dead at the end of Skyfall, you get to see this really cool message that she leaves for Bond at the beginning of Spectre, and it just immediately just creates that personal severity. Again, I love that. And they got Monica Bellucci this time around as one of the Bond girls in this movie. About 20 years too late if you ask me. Don't get me wrong, she's gorgeous until the day she dies, but she deserved to be a Bond girl a long time ago. And of course, he seduces her, but there's this awesome scene, one of my favorite Bond scenes of all time, where Bond's just hiding and he shoots those two guys out of nowhere and just comes out of the shadows.
What a lovely view.
Oh, you're too cool, Danny boy. And as you're watching these the whole way through, you can tell that Sam Mendes, the director, is completely a Bond fan. He's even said that he grew up watching the films. But Christoph Waltz plays the villain this time around, and he plays Blofeld. You don't find that out until really a little bit later, and he's not even in the movie all that much. But man, when you see him at the beginning of the movie and they're having this like huge hall meeting in front of everybody where it's sort of an homage to sort of what they were making fun of in Austin Powers, like a Dr. Evil and a number 2. Blofeld in the old movies, he always had a number 2 or someone that had like an eye patch or his right-hand man. And this one is Bautista. But if you look at this and then you watch the movie Thunderball, I mean, it's pretty identical what they're doing. They're just pulling from that, just doing a new version of it. But it's done really well. And I think that Christoph Waltz is badass as Blofeld. And Dave Bautista is awesome too. Again, he belonged in a type of role like that. Would have been kind of cool though if he would have played like a modern day Jaws. But he's still terrifying with his metal thumbs and eye gouging. Ah! Oh my God! But then we get this amazing twist in Spectre. We find out that Spectre is the name of the organization. But you pretty much see Blofeld in that scene, and then not really until later at the end of the film. And they go to the facility of Spectre. And for those of you who don't know, Spectre stands for Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion. Ooh, that's a mouthful. But Spectre was in all the old Bond films, so was Blofeld. And they hadn't used him in so long because the rights to the character Blofeld and Spectre were all tied up into some sort of weird lawsuit. But now it was all back in the Broccoli family's hands, and they can use that name Spectre and Blofeld. But we all remember Blofeld and Spectre being sort of the mastermind, his arch nemesis in the old school Bond films. And Spectre controlling the world. Christoph Waltz does a fantastic job of portraying the character of Blofeld and the leader of Spectre. But the difference is in this one, which just makes it that much more badass, is that the whole reason Blofeld is doing all these things is to torment Bond. Because why? None other than he's his brother. Man, why haven't they done something like that yet in a Bond film? That was phenomenal. I love it. And on the coattails of Skyfall, us as an audience finding out that Bond's parents were killed when he was a young kid, and now that he was raised by someone else with this guy and they were technically brothers, oh, he even admits to everything. Vesper? The events in Skyfall? Phenomenal. That's why I'm saying I hope that they just keep that rolling with No Time to Die. I know that Christoph Waltz isn't going to be in there, but he could still be in control somehow. His work could still be working for him. Anyways, I'm sure they're going to do something to tie it all up, it being Craig's last film. Oh, Danny, gonna miss you. And I'm really curious to see what that's going to be. I expect it's going to be good. They've done a really great job on this whole era of Bond with Daniel Craig, in my opinion. They give you so much fan service by the end of Spectre, not only by seeing Blofeld in the classic costume that he wears, but there's one moment where Bond wakes up and he sees the white cat. But as a whole, the Daniel Craig movies are excellent. I think they're all great. Even Quantum of Solace, it's my least favorite one, but it's still good. And like I said earlier, what makes it great is this over-encompassing story arc that all these films are following. It just makes everything that Bond does more and more and more just seem that more meaningful. So when it comes to Daniel Craig, I think he's perfect for the role. He's the only Bond that I buy 100%, and everything he does in these movies, 100% I buy it. Like I said, Quantum of Solace, it goes a little over the top at moments, but they corrected that quickly with Skyfall. I've never felt as badass in a Bond movie as I do when I'm watching the Daniel Craig Bond movies. That's why he comes in at numero uno. If you've never seen any of the Bond films for some reason and you're watching this, I say watch the Daniel Craig ones. Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre. If you're tired of the old school Bond movies and you gave up on the route that they were going with the Pierce Brosnan films, I'm telling you, give these a try. Not only do they correct the course immediately and make them really awesome and gritty, something they've never done before, but you'll find yourself really getting wrapped up into the overarching story. Or if you're one of those people that has never liked James Bond, I'm telling you, give Craig a shot. You're gonna love him. Well guys, thank you so much for tuning in for this finale of James Bond Never Dies, Part 6. Daniel Craig, you sexy beast! And you got your head all the way up it!
And you got your head all the way up it! Give me all you got!
Sorry, I'm getting lost on heat quotes. But seriously guys, thank you so much for tuning in this. Hit the like button if you like the video. It helps us out. Every single like helps us out. Look for Brass Reel Brothers on Facebook. Look for Bobby Williams on Facebook. And you can find me on Twitter, Brass Reel Bobby at Brass Reel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can help us make it to the top. Now, if you'll excuse me, old Scratch and I here have got a date with Mr. Craig. Daniel Craig. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah, let's make some Happy New Year popcorn.